Hey.
There we go. Hey. I think the problem was the way I'm holding my phone. So my phone was up long ways.
Okay.
Oh,
And
okay.
you guys are, I think that was the issue.
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
I think.
Hi.
Okay.
Hey, girl.
Hey. What's up?
Hey, what you wearing?
On here. I don't know how I don't have to hold this the whole time. There we go. Okay.
Um,
There we go.
Tell us what you
All
wearing.
right.
What you got on? What's that? I see you got some stuff on. What you got?
Yeah, so this is a brand new set. It's one of our Fashion Fix sets for June. Fashion Fix are our matching sets. We do 5 different ones every month.
Mhm.
This one is actually a trend that I don't normally wear. It's real earth stone-ish, not really my normal
Mhm.
thing, but it's
I
so
love it.
gorgeous and it totally matches what I was planning on wearing that I was like, yeah,
Right.
I'm totally gonna wear this. So yeah, I'm gonna have these available in another week or so. I usually buy them around the 5th of the month. I take pre-orders the first couple of days of June. So yeah,
Yeah.
it reminds me of
So,
Wakanda forever. I feel like I'm a citizen.
Yes.
yes, it does.
Love it.
So look, this is what we're gonna
That's
do.
what
We're
it
gonna
feels
do a
like.
nice. I want to make sure I give you a nice intro. Ladies and
Okay.
gentlemen, everybody who is tuned in, you are watching More Love with R&B,
Yay.
and today we have my beautiful cousin Nicole DeShera,
Yay.
elite paparazzi consultant. And your
Yeah.
website is bfabbynicole.com. And if people want to pick up some paparazzi jewelry for $5, they can go to that website. Is that correct?
Yep, they can go to the website. It's bfabbynicole.com. Everything is $5. There is a statement line that's $25. Those are what we call our Z collection pieces. And I'm actually in the process of trying to win one named after me. So if anybody wants to help us in that effort, we're in the last 6 days of the month for me to win that contest. I'm in the top 5 right now, but you got to be the top 2 to win. So we still got a little work to do. Anybody that wants to contribute, I would love to have your support.
Yes. So we
Yeah,
are
the website
definitely going to be pushing that throughout this feed. Just in honor of that, we always want to support as we appreciate being supported. I got 4 of my 5
Hey.
$5 jewelry pieces
Yes.
on. And one of the things that I like about it, before we get started is the fact that you guys do have stuff for guys. I know a lot of people see everybody's doing this $5 jewelry thing, and it seems like it's just all women and it's only women jewelry. But you guys got a lot of nice pieces for guys, and Sharaya knows like I'm not really like a jewelry accessory type guy.
Yeah.
But A, I wanted to support, and B, I saw some dope stuff that I was like, yo, I can rock that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So
it looks great on you.
oh, thank you.
Thank you for your support. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So we're gonna get started. Just to kind of give everybody a brief background. I'll let you kind of tell us what you're doing now, and we'll kind of work our way. We'll start at the beginning and kind of work our way back to to current day. But just to let everybody in our audience know, I personally have been watching your Mindset Monday videos like every Monday on my way home from work. And you are very, very encouraging, very inspiring. But you do sometimes get a lot of conversations about your relationship status, or you start dropping some nuggets that kind of go into that lane of relationships, and people want to know more, and you're like, that's not what I got on here for. So we are happy to provide a platform where we can dig all the way into that and give you an opportunity to share as much as you like.
Yeah. That definitely happens. Like you said, it happens almost weekly, and it's unnerving a little, but definitely a conversation I think that needs to be had. So I'm glad we're doing it this way.
Good.
Yay.
Yeah. So you got your first question?
Yeah, so let me just pull up my questions.
You look fabulous too, by the way. Just feel like
I try.
Fabulous.
Thank you.
So I wanted you to give us just a very general and brief, I guess, introduction of your background as far as your marriage, and kind of what happened. Just very, very general. because we want to work our way into some conversations about relationships.
Sure. So my background is first of all, I'm 35. I'm 35 years old right now. I was in my early 20s when I got married. I've only been married once. I've been divorced for about 4 years now.
Yeah.
I have 4 children, 3 from my marriage, 1 prior to. And that's kind of the high level, sort of my relational life. At this point, I'm not actively dating anyone. I'm really just kind of focused on, as my cousin mentioned, I'm a business owner, and, I'm a single parent. So my hands are pretty full between running a really big, company and a really big team, and
Right.
Having 4 kids to be responsible for. So my relational journey and a lot of what I'm going to share tonight as it relates to wisdom from that experience has really spanned probably the last 2 decades of my life. Really, because I had my son when I was 17, and I started down sort of the relationship thing when I was about 15 years old. So that's been 2 decades or so, and in that time, several failed attempts at relationships, several unhealthy ones, an abusive marriage that ended in divorce, and a host of other things. So that's kind of the high level of where I've been and what's kind of led me to here.
Okay.
Right. Okay. So one of the things that I heard you mention in one of your talks is the lack of marital community or marriage community. And we've talked about that on our channel, our YouTube channel. So friends of our friends who are joining us from our BFAB or paparazzi. We have a marriage channel, a relationship channel on YouTube called More Love with R&B, and we have a video about the importance of marriage community. And so I heard you speak about that, the fact that you lack that. Can you talk about that?
Sure. So first of all, everyone that's watching, and I don't know if it's because of the way that it's sitting, I can't see anything in terms of who's jumping in and comments. I just see the numbers in terms of how many viewers we have. Okay. So anybody that is joining as a result of me sharing, or that follows me or my friends and family, hey to everybody. And more specifically, please make sure that you follow their page. And I think we're on your business page right now, right?
It's shared to that. Yeah. It's on my
Okay.
personal page,
So
but
guys,
it's shared to that.
Got it. Okay, so yeah, make sure, guys, that you follow that page and make sure that you stay plugged in to what these guys are doing, because it's so needed. It's so needed, whether you're married or not, whether you're thinking about getting married.
Right.
Just to open and to have the relationship discussion is so healthy and so valuable. So I want to encourage everybody, as I've been doing on some recent lives leading up to this, just to go and follow them, and just kind of follow the Morris family and just see what they're doing and all their good stuff. So make sure you guys are connected there. As it relates to your question, and you're right, I do remember the discourse I went on as it relates to just kind of what not having that, and not having what I call marriage community or relational community. Mm-hmm. I think one of the very first signs of an unhealthy relationship is isolation. Mm-hmm. I think if your relationship only thrives in isolation, if you guys are only good in your little bubble, mm-hmm. and you don't do well with each other's family, with each other's friends, you don't have a sense of community, mm-hmm. in your relationship, you're in trouble. Right. Because the newness of a relationship, in the beginning when things are great, mm-hmm. All of that stuff is awesome, but it doesn't last. Longevity mm-hmm. sets in. And if you're going to make it, you're going to need more than just you and your knowledge base, your feelings and your opinion. You're going to need someone that knows more than you, someone that can be honest with you, someone that's been down the road that you are traveling, someone that is a peer that's going through the same, that's around the same experience level as you are. Right. And then someone that you're hopefully pouring into. Those levels are necessary in every relational context, and in my opinion, in life, so that you have a good balance, so that you're not the biggest fish in the pond, that you're not overwhelmed by all the other bigger fish, but that you've got a good balance of all the above. Where relationships are concerned, and specifically marriages needing community, I think that is vital. And in my marriage, we did not really have that. We had some friends, my ex-husband and I pastored a church together, and ministry and all that stuff was a big part of us. That life, unfortunately, requires a very important and well put together presentation. Right. Okay. You don't really get to be transparent. You know, it's not really socially acceptable in that world to say, you know, yeah, we suck right now. Like that's just not, you don't get to stand up in front of a church and say that, right? And where I understand as leaders, it's important to maintain, you know, just some lines in the sand. Everything isn't for everybody, and you got to be able to lead from the front. You can't be so common and all. I get all that. But at the same time, that makes it even more vital that you have somebody behind the scenes that you can tell the truth to, that you have somebody that understands the truth of where you are and that hopefully can relate to your journey. So in our case, we had other pastoral, you know, friends, couples that were friends, but we weren't transparent with them. We weren't truthful with them. I won't even blame it on them and make it seem like they weren't good friends. Some of them were. We weren't good in terms of just being truthful with them. You know, your points of accountability are only as good as you are integral. You know, they're only as helpful as you are honest. You know, and so if you're not honest to where you are, then you can have great people in your life that are chocked full of potential help to offer you, and you don't get it because you don't tell them the truth, right? And so that's kind of what happened with us in terms of trying to just save face and keep a certain image. You know, my ex-husband was very prideful. He grew up in that era of what happens in our house stays in our house thing. Unfortunately for brown people, that's cultural for us, and it's very dysfunctional. It is very dysfunctional. Should you wear your personal life, you know, on your sleeve or put it on social media? No, but there should absolutely be somebody somewhere that you can tell the truth to, because if not, you're dying quietly. And then when the divorce happens, everyone's looking like, wait, you guys got divorced? What happened? I heard that over and over. I loved y'all. I thought you guys were awesome. You guys were my relationship, you know, idols, if you will, not in a negative way, but like we looked up to you. And I'm like, dude, that's because you didn't know the truth. You know, that's the reason that you felt like that, because we did a great job of hiding it. And that's nothing to be proud of. So I think relational community means men need other men that can hold them accountable, that can tell them the truth, that they can receive guidance and wisdom from, especially because in our generation, those of us that we're kind of at the tail end of millennials, a lot of us didn't grow up with fathers. And so especially if you don't have that in your frame of reference, you really need community, because you really don't know what you're doing. You are totally going by your opinion. You know, you, in our minds, we think it's enough that I just want better for my kids than I had. That's not enough. It's not enough for you to not want what you had to be repeated. You've got to have someone to help you, because you don't know what you're doing. So men need that, and women can't provide that. If as a wife, we try to tell husbands, hey, this is what you're doing wrong, it's nagging. To hear that from another man is instructional, you know, it's potentially empowering, right? But that's why men need other men. We can't be the only voice of reason, because we're not at the same level. Although we live in a society that's big on equality, that's nonsense. Ultimately, we don't have the same roles. And so what we can provide to our spouses as women is just not the same. They need other men. And the same is true for us. We need other women. We need other sounding boards, people that can say, hey, you're doing that wrong. You need to do less of that, you know, or you need to do more of that, or here's an idea that you may want to try. So I think community and marriage, we talk about the village for children. It takes a village to raise a child. I think it takes a village to keep a family together. I don't think it's just about the children. I think you need a village in a marriage. You need a village in for your kids. You do, because they're people that just know more than you, and you need to be open to that wisdom. And you need to have somebody that you're sharing that with. Somebody needs to be benefiting. Marriage is a ministry. So if nobody is blessed by your marriage, you're doing it wrong. If you're just married for the sake of being in love, or so you can have sex and not feel guilty, then you're doing it wrong. Marriage is a ministry. And so somebody ought to be blessed by your union, which requires you to be transparent, right? So that we talked about honor up and honor down earlier this week. That's pouring into somebody behind you, or somebody that's trying to get where you are, and having someone that can help you to get to where you're trying to go. That makes up the community. And all of it is necessary if you're going to successfully navigate a marriage. Absolutely.
That's some good stuff right there.
Very good.
That's excellent.
So what do you think some of the like the communication barriers were in your marriage?
Communication barriers. Well, in most relationships, I won't say all, because that's a really broad stroke, but I'll use the small paintbrush and say that most relationships have a more outgoing, talkative person and a quieter person, right? You almost always have that. And I know my cousin, so I can guess who that is between y'all. You know, and so, and a lot of marriages are like that. Usually it's the woman, you know, and just because by nature we are expressive.
Right.
We are expressive by nature. Even if you meet a woman who's not necessarily outgoing, a woman who is more shy, if she goes into a room of strangers, she's not, you know, running the room. Even that woman in her relational life is expressive because that's the nature of women. So usually we have more, you know, we're more readily available to say how we feel about things, right? If you don't know how to do that in a way that is respectful, that can easily bring down the barrier. That can easily bring up barriers. I didn't understand that. I met my ex-husband when I was very young. I was 18 when I first met him. I was 20, maybe 22, 23 when I married him. And he's 7 years older than me. We grew up in very different household dynamics. And so those things all made our communication barriers big from the front, because I didn't understand, like, if I feel a certain way or if I think a certain thing, I'm just going to say it. And if you don't like it, then you just need to stop wearing your feelings on your sleeve and just, you know, take what I'm saying because it's the truth. And just, you know, if it's not in the best package, that's okay. Like, you're an adult, right? So just be a grown up and, you know, and take this here because what I'm saying is true.
Exactly.
A whole adult, right?
And my cousin can tell you I've been like that all my life. That's always been me. Right.
Absolutely.
And so I'm just now learning in literally after doing it wrong, I'm just now learning that that there's a way, that there's a timing, that there's a packaging, that there's a tenor that you have to use as a woman to be heard by your husband. And it has nothing to do with whether or not he loves you. It has nothing to do with whether or not you're right. It has nothing to do with whether or not what you're saying is valuable in nature. It has everything to do with the fact that women and men are validated by different things. Women need love. Men need respect. Absolutely. And so if you're talking to a man in a tone that's disrespectful, then even if what you're saying is true, he's not listening.
He can't hear you.
Because ultimately, he can't hear you. All he hears is, you know, like all of that. Yeah, you know, and you can almost tell because their faces become kind of glossy, like you're not even really here right now, are you? You know, it just, you know, right? That look at a point. And statistically speaking, women have more words in their vocabulary daily to use than men. And so it's easier for us to rattle off how we feel about things and to just have a whole discourse in terms of communication, without understanding that and looking for our men often to respond to that in that place, not knowing men don't process or communicate the same way that we do. And so I think in my situation, one of the major things that was missing, and it's on me, was understanding that men need honor. Understanding that even if you're right and that even if what you're saying is valuable, you're not going to be heard if you don't do it in a way that's honorable. And to be honest with you, I hate to admit this, but I think in my case anyway, and I see this often, it comes down to trying to do God's institution or God's thing, meaning marriage, the world's way. And so when we try to do marriage devoid of the guidance of the Holy Spirit, inevitably you run into pitfalls because your humanity shows up. And so if you don't ask God, okay, my husband is tripping and I need to find a really nice way to say that. You know, like, Lord, please help me to get through, right? And it's not deep and spooky. It's very simple. I don't know the best way to approach this. So Lord, help me. Season my words with grace. Give me the timing as to when is right for me to have this conversation. Holy Spirit, go before me and soften his heart that he might be able to hear me because I'm coming in peace. I'm not trying to cause conflict. I want to help us to come to a better place. Help me to put down my right to be right and to pick up the need to be righteous, because sometimes righteousness and right don't look the same. So if I got righteous in the name of laying down my right to be right, help me to be okay with that, because you anointed me for this. I'm anointed to be this man's help me. And so help me to do it. I can honestly tell you there were so many times I failed to do that. And I can honestly tell you that I walked into huge landmines and created big problems because I didn't understand, if you don't handle that right, you are going to make that worse as opposed to better. And then you become enemies, or you become adversarial with the person that you're supposed to help. And in the case of the husband, with the person you're supposed to lead. And so then you've got a huge, conflict. It's a huge conflict, and it's very hard to make that better when that's the foundation of your communication. So on me, I could point fingers at him, but I'll say on me, it was definitely a lack of understanding that men and women are validated by different things, and that you got to understand that when you go in, so that you can be heard. Because if that's obviously what you want, then how you go at it does matter. And I just didn't understand that. I chalk it up to immaturity, naivety, carnality. I don't know, all of it, maybe, but I definitely missed it in a lot of ways in that respect.
So I want to, before we go to the next question, I just thought of something around, like, what do you feel like was happening, or around what time or stage in your marriage did you feel like what was like a signifier of this being the end, or this coming to a head, where you were like starting to doubt and question? Like, I'm assuming there was a time when you knew everything was good and everything was happy and everybody was all lovey-dovey, kissy-kissy and all that. What was the turning point when you felt like it was about to go south?
I remember it very well. I had my daughter, my oldest daughter. We both of us went into our marriage with two sons, and they're about 4 or 5, 6 months apart in age from his first marriage on his side, and I had my son right out of high school in another relationship, and then we had 3 daughters together. So our first daughter, who now is 9, I remember very well when I knew we were in trouble, and when I had regret or concern about who this person was that I married. And when I really said out loud to myself, like, you're in trouble. And it was when I had my daughter. I remember having her. She was literally a day or 2 old. We were still in the hospital, and we had major conflicts during the course of my pregnancy. And there were a lot of other factors around our relationship, a lot of other stressors that now, looking back on it, I see it was so unfair to expect us to thrive with all of that going on. Having babies changes everything in your relationship. Relocation, a new job, any and all of those things individually can become major, right? Or are stressors on your relationship. You put all of those things in the same package within a few months of each other, and man, like, you're drowning fast. And I totally did not give credit to that. I just thought, well, we'll be okay. This is life. We're rocking it. We good. We'll be fine. And that just wasn't the case. So when we had my daughter, I remember being in the hospital. I had a C-section with her. I remember being in the hospital, and if all the women that are watching, if you've ever had a C-section, the recovery of that is gruesome, right? You had one, so it is not the same as pushing out a baby at all. And so it's awful in terms of the recovery. So I'm on pain medicine, trying to, I hate hospitals, so I'm trying to do all the stuff that they make you do before they'll let you go home. I'm trying to get my body to hurt to do that because I want to leave. There's all of this stuff kind of going on with me. And we had a major argument because a friend of mine had come to visit to see our daughter, and I don't even remember all the details of exactly how this exchange all happened. But the long and the short, she came to visit. She wanted to hold the baby, like people do when they come to see you in the hospital, and didn't ask him. Like, I don't remember whether he was holding, I think he was holding her, and instead of saying, hey, can I hold the baby, she just kind of, oh, she's so beautiful, and just kind of took her. And I remember, again, I'm drugged, I'm on painkillers, I'm not fully even, again, I don't even remember the details. He probably could recall them, but I really don't. But I just remember he was very upset about how she physically took hold of the baby. Was audibly, and obviously very frustrated about that. She left, and it was a whole argument in the hospital room between the two of us after she left. And I remember him leaving and throwing his wedding ring from the door of that hospital room at me in that hospital, and it hit the wall. Literally, I remember it hitting the glass. And I remember thinking, I'm in trouble. I'm really in trouble. And I would tell any woman, domestic violence, stuff like that, those are the early warning signs. When you're dealing with a person that doesn't know how to handle themselves any better than that, you're in trouble. You are. Because it starts with, you know, you throwing stuff not at me, but at something to prove that you're angry. You know, it starts with the verbal assaults and the name calling and stuff like that. And the next thing you know, it becomes physical. And that's where things ended up between the two of us. So I remember at that point feeling like I was in trouble and feeling like I had submitted my life to somebody that was not emotionally stable. And I remember asking myself, now you got this baby, what are you going to do?
Right.
Because having my son when I was 17, unmarried, it was just a whole different dynamic. Right. Now I'm married. Having a daughter is just different. I don't even know how to explain that, but it's just different. And I really felt like a new parent, and then being able to look at her and relate to you know, to that, and wanting her to have everything I didn't have. I didn't grow up with my parents in a nuclear family. You know, I actually married into Brandon's family, so we're not technically blood related, but I was raised with them because I think my dad was your uncle or great uncle, something like that, whatever. And so I, you know, my mom married into their family, and I take nothing away from that. My dad, you know, raised me. He was amazing. You know, you can only hope for a step parent like him. But I wanted my daughter to know her father. I wanted her to grow up with what I did not have. And that became my focus. That became the priority. Like, it's whatever we got to do to keep this together, we're going to keep it together. But that moment, I remember the vulnerability of having just had this man's baby, the reality that what he was upset about wasn't that big of a deal. It mattered to him. And so I wasn't, you know, going to downplay it, but like to go off like that, but I'm literally like 2 days, not even 2 days out of surgery. Like, are you serious? Not to mention, she was still in the room. My daughter was still there. Like, what if that had hit her? Like, there were so many things in my mind. I remember laying there, just going through all the scenarios of how this could have all worked out, and then feeling very much abandoned because he did that and he left.
Right.
And now I'm in the hospital by myself, you know, and abandonment, we could do a whole show on that. But the fact that somebody has any ounce of that in their story, then as their spouse, you have to be very careful to not step in landmines when it comes to pulling on that. And that was a major point of abandonment that I felt in our marriage. And I think there was a part of me that didn't really forgive him for that. You know, feeling like you just left me there because you were upset about what somebody else did and how you felt that I didn't check them, but you didn't give grace to the fact that I legit just laid here and gave you a baby. Like, can I get a pass for that? Like, you know, I mean, can that be more important than whatever else? Like, everything else should be secondary to that, right? But that was definitely the beginning of the end for me. And what's very sad is that was very early in our marriage. And because Samantha was born in year 1, at the end of year 2. And we had 2 other children, and we stayed together for another 5 or 6 years after that. So, you know, but it was, if I'm honest with myself, one of the first signs of real trouble, and one of the first moments when I was really panicked internally that I had made a wrong turn in terms of having married him.
Wow.
Did you guys, so we've talked about on our channel the importance of premarital counseling as well as marital counseling. And we've suggested that all couples get counseling, even if you don't think that there's an issue. We just feel like it's good to have other people that can hear what's going on and kind of mediate or be the sounding board, if you will, and know what kind of questions to ask. So did you have premarital counseling? And throughout your marriage, did you guys get counseling?
We did not have premarital counseling. And I fully agree with you. That is absolutely necessary. Even if you feel like your relationship is healthy. Even if, and of course, most people do when they go into a marriage. And they feel like they're in a good place, right? Even if you feel like you guys are good, you still want to have an unbiased set of additional eyes
Yeah.
to look in at your relationship.
Yeah.
Somebody that is not partial to either one of you, somebody that has no stake in your success, and unbiased. That's what I mean when I say an unbiased third party.
Yeah.
Somebody that is not, partial toward your success or your failure, but that really can give you, and that understands human behavior and the psychology of how we're wired enough to be able to add some value.
Right.
And so I definitely believe that premarital counseling is a necessity. And it is one of the many things areas where I know we dropped the ball. And I do believe that contributed largely, because I think had we sat down and had real, again, transparent and honest conversation with a counselor, or with a pastor, or with a therapist, or whomever, I think that they would have pointed out. Now, whether or not we chose to listen,
Right.
I think about that often. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're in love and you just really believe that this is the one and you really, really want to do it. Even if, we'll work that out. It'll be okay.
We'll figure it out.
Right.
No, it's not going to be fine. You are going to be in trouble. Okay. Like that's the truth. And I don't know if somebody had held up that neon flashing sign for me, I can't say that I would have listened to it. So I try my best not to, blame anybody, because ultimately, like I was even saying about friends and stuff, we had some great people in our lives that we chose not to take advantage of. We chose not to take advantage of their wisdom or what they could have potentially offered us, because we just weren't transparent with them. So we did not do counseling in the premarital context. We did do counseling in the marriage at the point that we were in trouble.
Right.
And here's what I'll say about that. For people that are, and I remember offering that or presenting that, I should say, to my ex-husband and asking him, was he open to doing it? Because I really felt that was all the only thing that could help us. I said, we've got to get to counseling. Somebody's got to be able to help us to see what we're not seeing.
Right.
And, I really think we should do it. And he didn't give me any resistance. He agreed. He said, that he would go. And so, us going was mutual in terms of, the agreement that we made to go. However, it was not, and I say this because we had this grieves me, because we had a phenomenal therapist. I still see him today as an individual. When my ex-husband stopped going, and at a point he just decided he didn't want to go anymore, I continued to go. And to this day, years later, I am still seeing him. And not as frequently as I was at one time, but I still have touch points with him now. Even though he's in Atlanta, I moved back home to Maryland. I still do them by FaceTime. He is anointed for counseling. Like, he's a Christian counselor. He's got all the degrees and all that stuff, but he's really, really phenomenal. And it grieves me that we didn't take advantage of what we had. I remember specific sessions we had that he came to and completely wasted both of our time, all three of us, me, him, and the therapist. One particular session I remember we had where I was, and I'm not throwing stones, I'm just saying I can honestly look back, and this is all under the umbrella that counseling is only as good as you are integral. So if you go to a counselor and you don't tell them the truth, and you are not going to get out of it what you could as it relates to benefit, right? It's a waste of your time and your money to go to a counselor if you're not going to be honest, or if you're not going to take what they tell you and actually go home and do it.
Right.
We had both of those. We had times when he would give us practical strategies, tools, things to help us, certain phrases to use when things would get escalated between us. And in the moment, it would just go out the window, or one of us would try and the other person would shut down or kind of throw it out. And then at a point, I remember specific sessions where, like, I remember going one time and having a real serious grievance with him about a situation. And I would and he literally sat there, and I remember leaving that session feeling like just like the gum on the bottom of somebody's shoe, because he really belittled what was my concern and really made it seem like it was all in my head. And later I found out everything that I thought was going on plus more with him and this person. And he literally said in that session and was completely dishonest with the whole thing. And that was a safe room. That was the safest place he could have told me the truth about what was going on, was right there. And at that point, we had years of rapport established with this counselor. So it wasn't even like off and on. We had gone back to him, at periods over years at that point. So it wasn't even like, well, this guy's a stranger. I don't really know him. He's not credible in my eyes. None of those things were factors. Like, we had rapport. And then when I look back on that, to this day, it grieves me, because it absolutely reminds me of just how wasted that tool actually was. Counseling is a powerful tool, but you can waste it. And unfortunately, we did. He chose to go into that setting, and as opposed to just owning it, like, okay, maybe telling you this at home would be detrimental to both of us, so let me tell you here, wow, we got an unbiased third party, and if this goes completely left, at the very least can call the cops and keep one of us from killing each other. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because the information was that type of stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't, oh, I burned the chicken. Like, no, it was real life. So, so it definitely, that was the place. And that's the thing. Every marriage needs a safe place. You need a safe place, especially if you have communication issues, especially if your interactions border abusive. You have got to be intentional about finding a safe place to communicate with each other. And an unbiased third party is, in my opinion, is one of your best options. Absolutely. And so, in our case, we did it, but we just didn't take advantage of it. We didn't utilize it in the way that we could have.
Wow.
So as you guys got through, you said that you had about maybe like 5 or 6 years after your first daughter was born. Tell us a little bit about that time frame when you said you understood that you knew you were in trouble with the ring going up against the wall, and you were kind of like, "Y'all just gave you a baby, yo. What are you doing? Are you coming back? Like, I need a ride." Like, once you got past that, like, somebody got to come back and get me and take me home. So, like, once you got past,
picking me up? This is before Uber, so I wasn't even like I could call Uber or nothing. I'm up here stuck.
So we'll call a cab. So anyway, sorry. So once you got past that moment where, again, you were like laying in the hospital bed and you understood, wow, like, we are in trouble. Like, something's just not right here. Once you got past that moment, up until the very time that you filed for divorce, what was happening in those, 5 or 6 years? Like, tell us a little bit about, like, the air at home. Like, how was home life? How were were you guys like praying together? Were you guys doing anything with the kids? Like, what was the vibe like in the house and, publicly? Because you guys said you were in public ministry. Like, just walk us through, like, what the overall feel was for that 6 years or so.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the major piece that was missing was prayer. That is utterly pathetic to admit, considering that we were leading people in ministry. But I can't recall actually, especially when things were at their worst, a time that we stopped and just prayed together, and not in the heat of a moment that was bad, or in the heat of an argument or anything negative, but just on a, like the way that you should have prayer. Prayer should be a staple in your marriage. If you want your marriage to be healthy, you don't need to wait until adversity to pray. If you want your family to have a fighting chance, you don't need to wait until a special occasion, or only over your food, or only on your way to bed. Now I lay me down to sleep. No, you need to be, you need to graduate from now I lay me down to sleep prayers and come on up to real, because that was cool when you were 5, but now you're a whole adult. And so you definitely are going to have to do more than that. True story. Okay. And I'm not trying to, to propagate religious banter. I'm talking just sincerity. There's so much power in just locking hands with the person that you're married to, and telling God, I don't like him. I don't know what to do about this, but this is the man that you said I was anointed for, and I am at a loss. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. God help me. Amen. Like, there is power in that, right? I mean, it's a true story. There is. And I remember there were periods when I didn't do that privately, when I was so, especially in the last maybe 2 years, when things were so bad. And honestly, it took me some time in counseling and my own journey to be honest with myself about this, but I went through a period where I was really angry with God, because I felt like, where are you in this? Where are you in this mess? Where are you in in how is it that he's allowed to be this hypocrite and to get up in front of people and preach to them, knowing that he's not leading us as his family? Like, this is wrong. And I didn't have the courage to say that to God, but I felt that way. And so instead of being honest about what I was feeling, I just shut down and I went through the motions, and I would lead prayer and I would lead worship and I would lead, you know, whatever ministry context. I would preach. And when I think about it, it's so sad, but my hope is found in the fact that God allowed me to live long enough to see the truth, and that he didn't let me die in that. Like, that is really my point of hope in the ray of sunshine in that period of my life. Because when I look back on it, it was so hypocritical, and it was so it was just so wrong on so many levels. But when we think about the idea that God is so committed to us that he doesn't allow us to be consumed even by our own choices, you know, and so it gives new meaning to the scripture that it's of his mercy that we're not consumed. I really believe those years in my life, the mercy of God kept me from consumption, because it was bad, and it wasn't just bad with us, it was bad internally. I didn't like the person I became. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't like the person looking at me. I didn't like the fact that I knew I was living beneath the privilege of who God had called me to be. I knew I didn't like the fact that I was staying in something so toxic and accepting something that I knew I didn't deserve. I didn't like the way that I started to cope. The human soul is not meant to live with voids. And so if you have voids in your life, you find a way to fill them. Whether it's work, whether it's the gym, whether it's alcohol, whether it's outside relationships, whether it's sex, whether it's infidelity and cheating, whether it's, you know, food. There are people that find ways to medicate their pain and to fill their empty places. And I was no different. So when I looked at what I started to do to deal with what was happening in our house, I am to this day, like, it's the power of God that has literally removed the shame. Because there was a very deep sense of shame in my life for a while in the initial years after my divorce, because I hated who I became. I hated the way that I coped. Instead of having the courage to leave, I stayed and I started doing things that were just so beneath me. I started behaving in ways that I was ashamed of, and I started pretty much living a double life. You know, and it was terrible. So in terms of our interactions over time, like I said, abuse, especially physical abuse, doesn't usually begin with, you know, the dramatic scene from a movie where you get knocked down a flight of stairs. It doesn't usually start like that. It starts with words, and it starts with, you know, side comments, and it starts with disrespect, and it grows into name calling, and it grows into throwing stuff, and you're not harming me, but you're harming something around me to prove that you're angry, right? And it escalated over time into that, and it became, you know, literally we could have called our house like the castle of petty, because when I tell you the level of pettiness between both of us, oh my God, like some of it now when I think about it was funny, but at the time it wasn't. One time I remember I got mad, and when I was angry, my therapist told me, when things get bad, and, you know, instead of going into the verbal abuse, remove yourself. So I got to the point where I said, I'm not going to keep leaving. Like, this is my house. This, you know, and not like, you know, it wasn't our home, but like, you know, this is where I live too. So I'm not going to leave every time you know, make me mad. So I'm just going to go to another part of the house. We had a single family house. We had 2 stories. We didn't have a basement, but we had 2 stories. And so I'm like, okay, well, you know, things are popping off in the room. I'll go downstairs, or I'll go upstairs if we're downstairs, or whatever. And I'll just put some distance between us, but I'm not going to keep leaving my house every time something goes wrong. I remember one time we had this argument, and it was totally pride. It wasn't even so much about trying to make things better. It was just, you're not going to keep running me out of my house, you know, which is wrong in and of itself. Because if you want to hold on to your right to be right, you're never going to find resolution. You're not. And when that becomes your priority, and when your priority becomes protecting yourself, when you have to protect yourself from the person that's supposed to cover you, you're in trouble. You are in trouble. You got to protect yourself from the person that's supposed to help you. If you're the husband and you feel like you got to protect yourself from your wife, the woman that's supposed to be helping you to be your best self, you are in trouble. And I didn't see that then, but it was the truth. And so I remember one night we had this argument. It was upstairs in the bedroom. And I remember going downstairs, and the way that our house was set up, it was sort of an overlook from the upstairs portion, like where the kids' rooms and stuff were, away from like the master suite. And the overlook, literally, you could look over into the living room downstairs, and the couch and stuff like that literally was right down there. And so I remember calling myself, because it was late at night, and I'm like, the kids are asleep. I don't want to wake them up with our drama. I'm just going downstairs, and I'm tired. And one of the worst things you can do is interrupt me when I'm asleep.
Yeah.
I'm totally not good when I'm tired. Like the grumpiness and the evilness is at a whole different level when I'm sleepy. And so I'm just all types of upset.
Yeah.
And I go downstairs, and I don't even remember over what. I don't even remember what the argument was over. I remember going downstairs and getting on the couch, and the level of pettiness, literally the castle of petty is what we should have called our house. The level of pettiness, this man decides to go get water, and I think it was in a cup or something maybe, and literally pours it on me over the overlook.
Oh my
Like, oh, so you gonna go downstairs and sleep on the couch? Oh, I don't think so. And I was just like, is this really happening right now? Like, oh my God.
Right.
It was bad. There were some things that now I look back on and I choose to laugh about them. And I choose to just throw it under the umbrella of we were extremely petty right there. But truthfully, a lot of it was very abusive. A lot of it really was. You don't necessarily have to, punch somebody in the mouth to be emotionally abusive toward them. And stuff like that, where it's like, I'm really trying to just separate myself from you because we can't seem to find a middle ground right now. And you can't just let me be. It's not like I'm leaving the house and you worried that I'm going to be with somebody else, or you don't know where I am, or you think I'm safe. You worried about my safety. Driving when you're angry is not a good idea. I remember getting in a car accident once, leaving our house after an argument, speeding, and literally within 2 miles of my house, ran into another car.
Oh my goodness.
Those things really happened over the course of those years. But it was none of that. It was like, I'm in the house, so just leave me alone. Like all you got to do is let me be. And he wouldn't do that. So over the years, we had extreme pettiness. We had abuse. We had it turned into physical violence. I was scared for my life at one point. I remember calling around to shelters and trying to find a place to go for me and my children. It was very, very extreme. And there are people in my family, even in my immediate family, to this day that don't know the details of what I actually endured in that marriage. I don't tell them because I still have children with him. And my children still visit him and stuff like that. And inevitably your families cross paths, and that's just not the kind of dynamic that I need. And so I don't, but it was very bad, and it escalated. And that's one thing people should know. If you are in an abusive relationship specifically, don't think that with time or with enough love or with enough of this or enough of that, it's going to magically one day get better. That is not true. You are in a toxic situation that could easily cost you your life. And you got to take that seriously. You got to take it seriously. I don't say that to villainize him. I just say it to know that abuse is a real thing, and it's a sickness. People that do that have a real problem. And if you don't allow them to get the help they need, and sometimes that's by forcing yourself out of the situation so that they can see, oh crap, this is a real issue, right? If you don't do that, it could cost you your life. It's not a game. So the years, after, between Samantha and between, that and the divorce, it was quite tumultuous, And the probably the most sad thing about it is the fact that it became normal. It became normal to function like that for several years. You literally have to mentally make it become okay in some way. And that's the part that's really hard to accept. But that's a byproduct of abuse. It is. It's a byproduct of abuse, and it's hard to, wrap your mind around that. I remember my therapist said that to me, like, you need to accept that you were a victim of domestic abuse, and I was just like, that label, I don't even like how that feels. Like, take that off. Like, don't stick that on my shirt. Like, I don't like that. It felt so not me. You think I always had this perception that abused women were meek, and they were quiet, and they were, the home keepers, and they just, I'm out here working and running companies and running ministries and doing all this and doing all that, and here I am in an abusive relationship. Like, it wasn't a shoe that I felt like fit me, but it really happened. It really did. And I had to accept that in order to heal. So it was very bad. The years between was very, very bad. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. I know that it was tough, and especially being a leader going from being a leader who spoke into people's lives, and now you're in a very vulnerable place. There are a lot of people who get divorces and then they feel like, well, I guess I have nothing to give. I guess I can't speak into people's lives anymore because, I've been divorced. And so have you ever felt that way? Like, because you were divorced, it disqualifies you from being able to talk to people or pour into, especially about relationships. Have you ever felt that way?
Absolutely. This is probably one of two, maybe two. I was a guest on another show kind of similar to this,
Mhm.
with a friend of mine once in California, and that was within the last year. So literally the first maybe 2, 3 years, I would get asked often, which I always thought was odd. Like, why are people
Mm.
asking me? Like, did you not hear that I didn't pass the marriage class? Like, why are you asking me relationship questions? Like,
Yeah.
knock it off. Can we talk about something else? Like, I
Right.
did not understand why that kept happening. Because you
Mm.
know what? The lesson is that often your greatest place of affliction
Mhm.
is your place of ministry.
Yep.
It is your place of effectiveness. The very thing that we think disqualifies us is
Right.
in fact what qualifies us.
Right.
Anybody can read in a book and tell you what the book says, or go to school and get a formal education, and I'm not knocking any of that. But
Mm.
anybody can do those things and regurgitate to you what they heard or what they read or what makes logical sense or what,
Mhm.
what they found out. But when you have lived through something, it
Right.
gives you a different level of authority. And once you
Absolutely.
have been healed, and once you have overcome, that's really where your authority comes from. The Bible
Mhm.
says that we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. So
Right.
your testimony has overcoming power attached to it when the blood of the Lamb is applied to it. So when
Mhm.
it's fresh and when you're still trying to heal and all that stuff, it's very easy to lash out. And in the name of
Right.
trying to, help or whatever other people, you can really mean to do that and ultimately end up causing more harm because you're not really healed. That's a different situation. But
Right.
ultimately, what God has called you to be and to do, who He has called you to influence and to impact, that is not diminished
Right.
by your failures.
Mm.
Felt like because I failed at marriage, because I
Mhm.
did not, and divorce is never the fault of one person.
Right.
Trust and know that if you don't make it in marriage, whether even in my case where I was physically, emotionally abused, I still take ownership for some of what deteriorated our marriage. It was
Mhm.
not just him. I say often that if my ex-husband had been perfect, if he hadn't cheated, if he hadn't lied, if he hadn't been abusive, if he hadn't done all the horrible things he did, it is very possible that we still would have ended up in divorce court, because
Mhm.
I got married as a fragmented person. I
Mhm.
went into my marriage without being whole. I had no idea what I was actually signing up for. I had misconceptions in my mind about what this was supposed to be. And I placed an unrealistic expectation and pressure on him to make me whole. It sounds cute in love songs to say that somebody's your better half, but that implies that you're half of a person.
Right.
And
Hmm.
it puts a huge pressure on the other person to
Yeah.
come in and make you whole. Like, no, that is cute in love songs and that's it. That's not
Right.
cute in real life. It's
Right.
not. Because ultimately, people are not equipped with that. The only
Mhm.
power, the only entity that has the ability to feel that, if the people, when they say that, what they're talking about is like, you make me better. I know what they mean, right? And I'm not taking away from the imagery of it, but I'm
Hmm.
saying in reality, you got to be whole going in. And I was not. I was not at all. And I didn't realize how broken I was. I didn't even know that to be able to communicate that to him. And he was
Mhm.
broken too.
Mhm. Mhm.
Somebody called me. He was broken too. And so because of that, your brokenness runs into his brokenness, and then it's just a mess. And that's exactly what happened for us.
Yeah.
So I definitely went through a period of, I think every divorcee goes through the period of, I'll never get married again. All men or all women, depending upon which side of the fence you're on, they suck. Forget the
Mhm.
whole thing. You go through those different phases, right? I'll
Right.
never do what, in my case, because a lot of what happened to me, and especially a lot of the trauma in my marriage,
Mhm.
was surrounding women in the church that we pastored. And
Mhm.
so, and one in particular that was very close to me that I loved. I mean, loved her like a daughter. and it traumatized me. I felt like this level of betrayal, like I don't ever want to go back to church. I'm not ever doing that. Like if somebody can literally walk with you, live in your house, eat your food, be a part of your family, and then turn around and do this kind of stuff, I want nothing to do with it.
Right.
And I went through a phase like that where I stayed away from everything. And I said, I don't care about what, I don't want to hear about God has called you to nations and God has anointed you to preach. I don't want to hear none of that. I don't. I'm okay. I want all I want to do is take care of my kids,
Right.
pay my bills, and live quietly and be left alone. I'm not here for none of the rest of that. I'm not. And I definitely went through that, and I realized now it was a necessary part of healing. I needed to heal. I did, and I needed to own exactly what I just said to you. I needed to own the fact that it wasn't all because of what was wrong with him.
Right.
That there was some very serious things wrong with me. And that I did not even see it, much less know how to fix it. Right. And so all of that was a big part of it. But yes, I definitely, and it's taken a great level of courage. This broadcast is the most I've ever publicly talked about my marriage.
And we really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, ever. And, and it wasn't a decision made lightly. But I can honestly say I know the journey that I've been on. I know the healing I've had to go through. I know the deliverance that's had to take place in my life. And I can honestly say nothing that I've said on this broadcast or that I'll say before we finish or in anything else talking about this is to defame or to devalue or to villainize my ex-husband. It isn't. It's more to bring light to what a lot of people go through. The divorce rate in our country is over 50%.
Absolutely.
That means more than half of the people that say I do end up saying I don't. And so obviously somebody has got to give a voice to what is wrong. And the truth is every situation might be a little different in its nuances, but at the core, I think a lot of people, if they were honest, would have to own the fact that it has everything to do with who you were going in.
Right.
I'm writing a book about that right now, who I was going in. And who I was going in was a hot mess. I mean, an entire fragmented, abandoned, rejected, insecure, all of those things. You take abandonment, insecurity, rejection, all of that stuff into a marriage and expect for it to thrive? How? Houseway. Like, how is that going to happen? You know what I mean? Like, you know, where? In what universe is that going to actually happen? You know, and we have this misconception that, you know, well, because I love him and he loves me, especially women, you know, we think just if I can just love conquer, and there's Bible to support that love covers a multitude of sin, that perfect love casts out all fear, that there is no fear in love, there's no condemnation in it. There's tons of scripture to support that. But we're talking about a healthy and a whole approach to love, not a romantic feeling. Right. And a lot of us put way too much stock in a romantic feeling, and that is flat out stupid because romantic feelings change.
Absolutely.
They change, they fade, and so you're crazy to build your whole life. What'd you say?
I said fade for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, true story. So it's like you're absolutely crazy to think that you can build something on that. You can't. When I hear people say, you know, people come to me for advice or counseling or whatever, and they, you know, my first question, why did you get married? Well, because we loved each other. Well, that's your problem. That's your problem. If you got married because you were in love, you're already in trouble.
Yeah.
Because ultimately you cannot build on that as a foundation, right? You might as well say I don't right after I do. Because if that's all you have, or if that's the reasoning, if that's the reasoning behind the choice you're making, you are in trouble. It may not happen in year 1, it may not happen in year 5, but trust and know, if the only reason that you ended up going down the aisle is because you were in love and you didn't do any of the other emotional work and you did not understand the ministry of marriage and you were not ready to be sacrificial. Some people are too selfish to be successfully married. If you didn't understand sacrifice, if you didn't understand submission, if you a woman out here talking about you can take over the world, but you don't understand that there's certain things that your husband is anointed to do that you're not, then you're already in trouble. Right. You are already in trouble. And honestly, I had a little bit of all of that. Our marriage had a little bit of all of it. So it definitely took me some time to accept that even that failure, it's the epitome of the scripture that all things really do work together for our good. And our good is not just for us. It's for the glory of God. And so the glory of God is built on, literally, he thrives in making miracles out of our mess and being able to use us and to showcase
Right.
this is a life submitted, not a life perfect, not a life void of trauma, not a life void of hiccups and seemingly unnecessary detours, but this is a life submitted, and God can use that. And it took me some time to accept it. It really did. Shame was a very big part of my healing process.
Yeah.
Shame is a very strong and heavy weight. And so I had to work through that, but with some, great leadership. Shout out to my leaders, my pastors, my parents, lots of people in my life that have really helped me to get to where I am. It's taken some time, but it was necessary. And I'm more persuaded than ever that where I have been doesn't disqualify me. It gives me authority to speak on the things that I do. And so I don't walk in shame or thinking that I'm not deserving of love or of whatever God has for my future. Quite the opposite. I'm more committed than ever to helping somebody to avoid the pitfalls that I went through.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you said that, because, and I think we might do a video on this, but a lot of people feel like they shouldn't share or they shouldn't give advice to their friends or loved ones who are thinking about getting into a relationship, thinking about getting married, or are already married and are having some pitfalls that probably like they recognize. And I think we might do a video called like, just because your marriage failed doesn't mean that you are a failure. And I feel like a lot of people have tools because of, like you said, because of the situations that they messed up in or that did not succeed. They have tools to say, you know what, I recognize that and I can help you.
Yes.
And I think that they should be
Yes.
empowered and
Yes.
not live in the shame. And I know, like, when you get divorced, it's like a death. And so there is a mourning and a grieving time. After you get out of that, you should be empowered to say, I'm not going to let somebody else go through what I did. I'm going to learn from my mistake and I'm going to help somebody else. So I think that's excellent. I really appreciate you sharing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you guys for allowing me to do that. I really appreciate it.
So one of the last things that we wanted to allow you to do, we'll get to that in a second, but I will say, we family, and I'll be honest, like it was a little hard to hear, a lot of stuff that you went through. And, had it been a different part of the day, you'd got a little bit of waterworks from me because I love you. And, so I'm really sorry to hear that you went through that. But I'm really glad that you are sharing your story, because that's what we're doing, and that's what we appreciate you coming on here to do, is to help people. Because the reality is, we know people, I'm sure you know people, like everybody knows somebody who has either been through a rough marriage, and there's people out there now that are going through rough patches where they're on the brink of divorce, or they're separated, about to get a divorce, or they're at the beginning of the end, and they're at their hospital bed stage where they're like, oh my gosh, like I'm in trouble. And so that is why we do what we do, to try to prevent people from getting to that. And we feel like, you are absolutely somebody we're proud to lock arms with. And, we can give our portions of times where we felt like, man, there's no hope. But like Sheree said, there's so much in you that I feel like the things that you've been through and the things that you've experienced can help those who are on their way to that and possibly turn that whole thing around.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm grateful for what you guys are doing. And I know I shared this with you privately, Brandon, but I'll say it publicly, that I applaud your efforts with this platform, and I want to encourage you just to keep going. I know we're in a society where social media has made us very cognizant of numbers, and we tend to gauge our success by the numbers. But I want you to know that even if it's one couple, even if it's two couples, even if it's one individual, what you are doing is valuable, and it's needed. It's really needed. It is needed. We need more honest and transparent conversations about the things that people really encounter. We need that. We really do. And so I just applaud you guys for even having this platform. and
Thank
even
you.
giving a voice even to people like me, to give us something, give ear to the fact that you're right. There is something valuable to be said. Anything that God allows, he intends to use.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got my arms around that, it freed me, feeling like I just felt a Baptist fit just creep up my back. Anything that God, like a whole clear the road. Because think about the worst thing that you've been through in your life, and the things that, especially in Christendom, we like to blame everything on the devil. But
Yeah.
the truth is, even if something is an assault from hell, even if it is an attempt from Satan, please know that it was permitted by God. Everything doesn't come from God, but everything can be used by God. And if he
Absolutely.
allowed it, he intended to use it. He
Absolutely.
intends to use it. No, not one piece of it becomes for nothing. None of it becomes, well, that just happened because it happened. No, there are things that happened to me years ago that today I am ministering to people in that place, right? There are things that God allowed me to go through, and some things that were my own poor decisions, but that he preserved me in. And again, back to that scripture in Romans about all of it working together, he
Right.
preserved me in it. And he used it. And literally in the moment, I couldn't even see how that could be used
Of
for
course.
anything good.
Yeah.
But literally there are no scraps. In cooking, you have scraps. You have things that you don't need for the dish, you throw it away.
Right.
There's none of that in your life. Every single piece of it, even the pieces that other people don't want, even the pieces you don't want, even the stuff that doesn't look good, even the things that you think won't taste good, trust and know that all of it is usable. All of it. It is all usable. And it may not be usable for you, or it may not look like in your hands right now. It has a purpose. But trust and believe that some of what you're experiencing today is for a person whose name you don't know right now. In real
Absolutely.
life, it could very well be for somebody that you might meet 5 years from now. A
Right.
person that's a stranger to you today needs you to persevere through what you're going through. I'm so glad that I didn't quit. I'm so glad that I didn't die. I remember one physical encounter with my ex-husband where I literally thought my life was over. I literally remember laying there in and out of consciousness thinking, I'm going to die in this house and my kids are upstairs. Like, I remember thinking that, and I'm just so overwhelmed. There was a moment when I couldn't think about that without feeling, the emotional effects of having gone through something like that. But today I look at it and I'm grateful that not only that God preserved me in it and that I didn't lose my life, but
Right.
that more importantly, I didn't allow it to define me. I didn't allow it to stop me, but that because I can speak now to people that are in that position, and
Absolutely.
not with some sort of, this is what you need to do, but with a deep sense of understanding, because I was you. I know what it's like to be in that position, and so there are no scraps. Every single piece of your journey is usable. It is, and if God permitted it, he intends to use it. He
Wow.
does.
Absolutely.
So I would say, because we're definitely going to have a big time of promo on this feed. So for everybody that has just jumped in, we've been doing this for a while. So whoever's just jumped in, please share this. There's been some amazing
Dialogue,
stuff in
yeah.
here and dialogue that we've been able to have with the fabulous Nicole DeShera. So last thing that we want to do before we get out of here, we want to give you some time to kind of talk to two sets of people. First, we want you to encourage people who are on the brink of divorce. We realize that there could be somebody watching now or watching on the replay. And like you said, because we are basically immortalizing ourselves in video by going on a server and basically sitting on YouTube or Facebook, and it can be there for Lord knows how many years, long after we're gone, probably, and it could be helping someone then. I want you to encourage people who are on the brink of divorce, people who are like thinking about, I'm about to sign these papers, or I'm about to go talk to a lawyer, people who are entertaining that ideal, who may still think there's hope, but they feel like, you know what, I don't think I have enough hope, so I think I'm going to go ahead and file. Or again, people who are just now entering the beginning stages. Talk to those people. Like, how would you encourage those individuals who are thinking about that?
I remember being in that place, exactly what you just said, of having hope, but a very, very tiny, literally the size of my fingernail amount of it.
Mm-hmm.
And with the truth of what was in front of me and what had actually happened in our marriage over the years prior, all of that staring me in my face.
Mm.
And I did not believe, and I remember actually saying to my ex-husband in conversations around reconciliation and stuff like that, I remember saying that it was just impossible for me to see it. And I gave him the example that the trees literally of every harsh word and of every physical assault and of every act of infidelity and of every lie and of every deceit, they were so big and they had grown so tall that I couldn't see through that, right? So even if there's something beautiful on the other side of it called reconciliation, even after all that, the trees were so big, and in hindsight, there were moments that I really wish that we had just worked harder to cut those trees down. I wish that we had worked harder to just and not be so quick. I had a gross misconception about what divorce was going to be like. I can honestly say that without change and without a willingness to do the work, and I don't necessarily know that he would have ever really done it, divorce was the necessary decision for my situation.
Right.
But I had a misconception about what that was going to look like and mean for me and for my children on the other side of that. And if I had it to do over, and years later, watching my children even today struggle with, the reality of us not being together anymore, us living in different states, them seeing their dad only a few times a year, and the rest of their time being relegated to FaceTime, all of the important things in their life that he misses because we don't live in the same city. All of those kind of things. When I look at that, I wish that we had worked harder to cut down the trees. And I wish that I had been more aware of the truth of what this journey was going to be like. My divorce journey, I know people that, got divorced, and to the person that's thinking about it, I know in the moment, all you can see is how painful things are, the voids and the trauma and the betrayal and the lies and the issues you can't get past, the friction. All of those things are real, and I'm not going to be the person to tell you to stay in abuse or nothing like that.
Right.
But I am going to tell you that those are the things that you see. Those are the trees that are in your way right now. But please know that on the other side of that decision of divorce, especially if you have children, it is a whole journey. It is, and it's a painful one. And it is one that, and you said it so well, Sharia, it is a living death.
Yeah.
It is a funeral without a body.
Yeah.
It is. And it is absolutely one of the most horrific things. And I've lost a parent. I've gone through a lot of other things in my life that were traumatic. I can honestly tell you this is by far one of the most hurtful things that I've ever been through. And not just for me, but watching my children.
Right.
The conversations that I've had to have with my kids, the level of information, and I'm not talking gruesome details about me and their dad. I mean, just the reality that a child comes to when their family falls apart, what that forces them to think about, the level of just, innocence that takes away from them. If I only understood that, I really believed, largely because I grew up in a blended family and all that other stuff, I really believed, oh, they're young enough, they'll be okay. I had no idea that are they okay? Yeah, they are. But has it been hard for them? And is it still very hard? Absolutely. And we're talking years later, And so for the person that is thinking about it, I encourage you to seek help. I encourage you to seek help. If you are at the point of divorce, before you pull the trigger on that, you need to sit down with an unbiased third party and really unpack what has happened in your marriage. And before you make the decision to walk away, be able to look at yourselves in the mirror and look at each other. And more importantly, look in the faces of your children if you have them, and be able to say with integrity that you did everything you could to save them, that you did everything you could to cut down the trees. One of the most painful things about my journey is the fact that I can't say that to my children. I can't tell them that we did everything we could. We didn't. And now their father is married. And so, there is no possible reconciliation for us, right? And although, again, it isn't that I'm mourning that or that I don't believe that that's okay, because I know that God has something tremendous for me and for my children. I believe that with all of my heart. The reality, though, and in order for me to be a gift worth giving in another marriage, I have to be honest, even with that man, and say, this is how I ended up here. You know what I mean? And not to villainize my ex-husband, but here's the truth about what actually happened. And so those I just encourage the person
Mm.
that is because I remember that. I remember all I could see, all I could feel was just, I am trapped in here and I've got to get out.
Mm.
And it doesn't matter what it costs me. I just need my freedom. I just, in my mind, it was just, I am literally incarcerated in this marriage and I have got to get out of here.
Mm.
And that was all I saw. I didn't realize that as a woman, because single parenting is so common,
Mm.
and because women are heads of households a lot more than we should be,
Right.
and because it's people don't blink when you say you're a single parent. They
Right.
don't blink when you say you got 4 kids. It's like,
Right.
oh, okay. But here's the reality. It is common, but it is still tragic.
Absolutely.
It is still tragic. Even when you're winning, even when my business is thriving, I'm hitting ranks in my company,
Yes,
I'm
you
doing
are.
well, but it is still tragic. Thank you. And I'm grateful to God for that. But it's still tragic that my family is not whole.
Mm.
It is. And that's just the truth. And so people need to be able to own that, right? And I wish, and much like getting married in the first place, I can't say that if they had, it would have made a difference.
Right.
But I wish that somebody would have set me down and said, here's the truth on the other side of you signing those papers. The truth is, signing the papers didn't emotionally divorce us. Even after things were legally done, there were still layers of stuff to work through.
Absolutely.
And some of it wasn't done before he started a new marriage. And that was painful to accept too.
Yeah.
But I'm still going through this process. And now I got to be done with it because now you've gone and made this decision, right? And so there's so many layers to all of that. And, but it is not, we are not without hope, that life is still worth living even after that. But if I had it to do over and if I could speak to somebody in that place, I would say to them, you need unbiased third-party intervention. And more importantly, you need the power of the Holy Spirit to make a sound decision about your future, because that's what you're deciding. You're not deciding in this moment. In the moment, all I wanted was my freedom. Right. Freedom to not feel underappreciated and abused and mistreated and all these other things. Freedom for love to find me. And in my head, that was going to be an easy thing once I was divorced. Not true. Right. At all. Not at all. And so I would encourage that person that is thinking about it to first and foremost to be led of the Holy Spirit and not by your emotions are ignorant. Your emotions are the worst compass that you can ever follow in your life. So true. When people say dumb crap like follow your heart, that is cute on greeting cards. Hey. It is not cute in real life, okay? Because your heart is deceitfully wicked. Do not follow that thing because it will have you going into an oncoming freight train. You need to get some sound counsel. You need some wisdom. And more importantly, you need the power of the Holy Spirit. And both of you need to lay down your right to be right in order to figure out what is right. Can this actually be salvaged? What do we have to sacrifice to be able to make it work? These are things that I wish had happened for me, and they did not. And so we live with the effects. But if I could say something to somebody in that place, I would say that do the work and don't be deceived about what's on the other side of that door, because it's common, but it is still tragic.
Wow. Well, I mean, I wanna end it there because I think that was amazing. That was amazing.
Absolutely.
We want to thank you for sharing your heart and sharing your story.
Being so transparent.
Yeah. And thank you for letting More Love with R&B be the platform by which you're sharing all this information. I really would love for us to, get together and do this again. Because I think this kind of dialogue always spawns more conversation and more questions, because it's never just an hour and a half conversation online and then people go, oh, well, now I got all I need. Like sometimes it can be a walking through a process for a lot of people, especially if they're watching this. It's like, okay, I got a lot now. You're trying to get a spouse to, hey, you should go watch this video, or and so even if we offer them this, there's always going to be more opportunities in the future to offer more. And we would love to connect with you again on some specific topics, because we just feel like you have so much to share. And we're so glad that you recognize that even at the status that you're in, you are in a place psychologically and mentally and emotionally where you can share. And so I'm really, really thankful for that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So thankful for
Yeah.
that.
Thank you
So
guys for having me. This was my pleasure.
Absolutely.
absolutely. So we want to basically say I have been sharing your Mindset Monday videos for the longest time.
Thank
And
you.
it's so funny because like it's Nicole be on there like, go ahead and share it, do it right now. It costs you nothing. I'm like, oh shoot. She's right. It doesn't cost me anything. Let's just build these
It
videos
is
like
free 99 to share the
free
video.
99. Yeah,
Now.
that's it.
Yeah.
And so I want to say to everybody who's watching from BFAB by Nicole and everybody's watching from More Love, please go and support my cousin. She has an amazing opportunity to get a necklace named after her. And one of the things I really want to say for all those who are going to watch this later, if it were you, you would want someone to do it for you.
Yeah.
However, you're not in a position to get a necklace named after you right now. So do it for somebody else. You feel what I'm saying? Like sometimes you just got to do something for somebody else because it is free. Like go ahead and share this video and then go on to befabbynicole.com. And I don't care if you're a man or a woman, go support.
Absolutely.
Spend that $25 or more to help her get to the goal of getting a necklace named after her. I think that would be a wonderful thing for you to do. So I think you should do that.
I think you should do that too.
And guys, there's definitely stuff for guys. I got my stuff here.
Yeah.
Because you just want to support. And I really love, what you're doing. And, we're happy to support. So for all those who are watching, go to befabbynicole.com and spend $25 or more so she can get that necklace. I want to see you get that necklace.
Yes, girl.
Me too. And we're so close. It's been a great day. Literally, while we were talking, 3, 4, 5 orders came in. Digging on my computer. I've got new people, 3 new people joined. 2 ways people can join the team and become a consultant. That helps a lot. And then also purchasing on the website helps also. So people have been doing that all day. My team, shout out to Team BFAB. They are a mighty army of men and women. They're amazing. And they have been doing their best to go on and purchase even as consultants on the website. So it's been great. The contest ends on May 31st at 11:59 Eastern. And so please, guys, even if you watch this in the coming days, just go to the website, spend 25 or more, share it on your pages, what you do to help support me and get people to rally behind it. It's going to be really, really fun. I'm really excited. And we'll get to see the necklace live in person in Vegas at the annual convention that Paparazzi has at the end of July. Okay. I won't see it before then, so I'll be able to share that online with y'all and do it together. It'll be lots and lots of fun, and I would love to come back. So you let me know when you guys want to do a part 2, and we'll definitely put it on our calendars and make it happen. It was definitely my privilege and honor to be with you all tonight. Of all the places to do this for the first time, I'm certainly honored that it was with my family, and so I really, really thank you guys for doing this. And I encourage you to please, whatever you do, do not quit, because we need this. The world needs this. They need what you are offering.
Thank you.
Please continue what you're doing. And I pray the blessing of God on your efforts, because literally the favor of God can do what money cannot. The favor of God can do what numbers cannot. The favor of God can give you influence and can open doors for you that you don't even know to ask for. And so I partner my faith with yours to see that come into reality. And I believe it to be so. And so thank you guys so much for being with me, having me to be with you tonight. This was my pleasure, and we'll do it again. You just let me know when.
Absolutely.
So again, we want to thank you for coming on. So everybody just tuned in. All that replay stuff I do it online when they watch it later on.
Yeah.
Go to befabbynicole.com.
Yeah.
Spend $25 or more so you can get that necklace.
Yes.
Be a part of history. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it again. I'm just gonna put my money where my mouth is and do it again, because I want to see this happen too.
Absolutely. And if you guys enjoy the topics that we've been talking about, a lot of the things we talked about, a lot of things that Nicole talked about, we have tons of videos about marriage community, about communicating correctly with your spouse, about how to have a decent argument and disagreement with your spouse, a productive one with your spouse, all these different topics that we unpacked. We have videos on them. So if you have not watched any of them, please join us on More Love with R&B on YouTube and check out our videos. Yes,
we pinned the comments so everybody can check that out.
Absolutely.
So Nicole, we're going to do some crazy sharing to a bunch of groups. I'm hoping that you'll do the same. Once we get to the replay, we'll share it to a whole bunch of places and get this message out.
I certainly will. Thank you guys. Have a good night.
Thank
I love you all.
you.
Love
Love
you.
you.
All right. Bye-bye.